First and foremost, I want to take a moment and I want to introduce Charlie Ward. He also goes by Coach Ward these days. Many of you know Charlie. And when I say know him, you've seen some of the things that Charlie has accomplished. Charlie has had an incredible career, incredible journey, and he's going to talk a lot about that tonight. Former Heisman Trophy winner at Florida State, also had a great basketball career, went on to play for the New York Knicks, and then had some great coaching opportunities and continues to just impact the next generation. There's some pretty amazing things that he's doing with his future and his wife and what they do in the nonprofit space as well. So Charlie, before we jump in, I'd like to just welcome you and allow you to open your mic and just, say anything you'd like as far as an introduction, and then we'll jump into some questions if you'd like. Oh, you're on mute, Charlie. Sorry.
Thanks, Dayton, for allowing me to be a part of your group, your school. It's a great honor for me to be able to come and share just a little bit about my life. I'm actually from Thomasville, Georgia, which is a small town in Georgia, about 45 minutes north of where I currently live, which is Tallahassee. I have six siblings. My mom and dad's been married for 60 years. I've currently been married for 29 years to my beautiful wife, Tanja. We have three beautiful kids, even though they're almost grown. Caleb is 24, Hope is 21, and Josh is 15, soon to be 16 in November. And so we reside here in Tallahassee. Coach high school basketball, head boys basketball coach here at Florida State University School, which is a charter school for Florida State University. And I do public speaking, and my wife and I and our family, we have a family foundation that we run some programs now, and we're in the process of building a youth and family sports education and wellness campus here in Tallahassee to help serve not just the local community, but have regional and national opportunities, which hopefully one of these days you all as a school will be able to come and visit, because there will be a school here.
Yeah, we're excited for you. You referenced Tanja, and like me, Charlie, I'm sure you can agree that we always typically say that our better halves are truly our better halves. And Tanja, I had a chance to sit down with her a couple of weeks ago, and she's remarkable. She's amazing. She had a chance to talk about what you just spoke about, which is the work you guys are doing, not only in the nonprofit space, but also kind of what you just talked about with the ranch and what's being developed. And I know our students will be excited that, when things get up and running, it's another facility, another opportunity for them to be able to come and interact, not only, out on a field or on a court, whatever it may be, but be able to connect with you in person as one of the ICL champion mentors. So kudos to you and the work you're doing. It's really amazing, and we're excited to be able to spend some time with you tonight.
I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, we'll jump into some questions, Charlie. There'll be some open Q&A as well. I've had a chance to listen to a lot of your talks online. I've had a chance to obviously see your ESPN 30 for 30, and you've had a remarkable journey. And one of the things that I know you consistently do throughout your public speaking is you'll reference others in the sense of, quotes they've used or statements they've made. And, you referenced a quote a while back, and the quote was, "To be successful in anything, the truth is you don't have to be special. You just have to be what most people aren't: consistent, determined, and willing to work for it." I want to ask you about that. What does that mean to you? Because that's going to play into some of our questions tonight.
That's a very good quote. And, when we talk about special, God has blessed us all with a special gift and talent. And one of the things that we've all have an opportunity to do is we have an opportunity to make a choice on how we want to use that gift and how often. And I know for myself, one of the gifts that I had growing up was just great hand-eye coordination. And so what did I do? I did everything hand-eye coordination. I made everything a ball. I was always jumping over lines. I was always touching the ceiling. doorposts. I was always dribbling without a basketball. All those things are what we call habits. And those habits create what we call success long term. Because when you start building upon, I know some of us play, is it Jenga? Yeah, I think it's Jenga. You know, when you start taking pieces out of the puzzle, of the stack, and at some point they all fall down. But when you start building it back up, you're putting it piece by piece. And when it's all said and done, you have a big stack. And so I think the more we do things, the more we're consistent in doing those things, it becomes great habit. And then those habits become what we call determination. You determine to make sure that you're doing whatever it is that you desire to do. I always I'm a coach, and I always talk to our guys about, you know, showing up. If you show up, as our pastor talks about this, if you show up, you have an opportunity to grow up. And so you just have to be there. If you're there, then you're going to have an opportunity to be successful and practice some of those habits that will turn into things that you do on a daily basis to help you be successful. And so I just think it's something that God has given us all. How hard are we willing to work to fulfill that goal or those dreams that we want? You're not going to always fulfill the dream because that may be long term, but what we can do is prepare ourselves to have great success by doing things on a daily basis. And as I mentioned, those are called habits.
That's amazing. You know, it's incredibly profound what you just said, because what we talk to our students a lot about are those habits. You know, we here at ICL, we have 6 P's that we focus on, Charlie, and those 6 P's are passion, purpose, perspective, perseverance, personalization, and process. And that's not the exact order that they go in, but we typically flow in an order of those 6 P's. And, you know, what you just touched on is part of the process, is creating those habits. And so, you know, one of the, I guess, first questions that I want to ask you, and it's related to a couple of the, you know, sports you played. What sparked your passion for both football and basketball, and how did you balance those 2 worlds while growing up?
As I just mentioned, I had a great gift, and that's the gift that I birth each and every day. I got in trouble a lot with my parents because I was always dribbling the basketball. There was one of the rules in the house that you can't dribble the basketball or play with the ball inside the house. Well, of course, as you know, I got in trouble a lot for that because I just wanted to do it. And they understood it over the course of time, but I broke a lot of windows as well. And so I just enjoyed being an athlete. I talk about this when I go out. If I could have been a professional athlete in the first grade, that would have been me. I wouldn't have worried about how much I was getting paid because I just enjoyed playing sports. But one of the things I had to understand was if I was going to play any sport, I had to make sure that my academics were in order. That was one of the things that I didn't like doing because it took away from the thing that I really liked. But my parents, you know, made sure that I understood that if I wanted to do the thing that I wanted to do, which was play, I had to make sure I was disciplined enough to do my homework, make sure my grades were in order. And so I did whatever I needed to do from an academic standpoint to make sure I was able to participate in sports. And so that is my passion. I mean, I just enjoy it. I have a book out called The Athlete. And people ask me, you know, which sport did you enjoy the most? Or what was your heart desire? Or you love? I just love competing and playing sports. That was just my thing, regardless of what the sport was. And so I just think my passion was driven solely by something, as we all know, you have a passion for things that come easy to you. And so for me, sports was that reason. Sports was the way that I was able to enjoy life because it came easy.
Yeah, yeah,
That
absolutely.
didn't not just because it came easy didn't mean that I didn't have to work, continue to work. And so when you start thinking about the elite athlete or the elite student, they have a gift, but they also put work on top of that gift to be able to multiply it. And I use the talents, from the Bible, the gifts of the talents. And so, if you're at a 2 and you work at it, you can get up to a certain number. But if you're at a 5 or a 7 and you don't work, then you're going to be at a 5 or a 7, or you may decline. And so I think it's important that we all understand, regardless of what kind of gifts or talent God has blessed you with, if you put some work into it to continue to develop that skill, then that's where you have your Michael Jordans and your LeBron James and your Kobe Bryants and all Stephen Curry's, the guys who are elite at what they do. Well, I'm a basketball guy, so I just named all basketball players.
That's okay. That's okay, Coach. We know that we know you're an athlete in general, and that's okay that you're still passionate about basketball. You had some great wisdom that you shared there. You started about talking about the academics, and obviously, talked about the determination, and you talked about the professional level too. I'm gonna ask a few questions related to that, and then I'm going to jump to a question that came in from one of our students. I want to talk a little bit about what you said about, you were in first grade, and if you could have gone pro in first grade, you just loved playing. You didn't care about the money or anything like that. You just wanted to play. And, it's interesting at ICL, when our students come in, one of the things that kind of separates ICL is we don't sit down and say, hey, let's talk about how to get you to the pro level. We sit down and we talk about, let's look at your academic record. Where are you looking to, go collegiately? Now, don't get me wrong. We have some elite players that are on this call with us tonight and within, the entire school. And some of them have gone on and played professionally. Some of them will go on and play professionally after their collegiate time. But what's interesting is we hone in on the academic aspect. And so I want to start there with you, back to what you said. I know when you were growing up, even when I was growing up, online academics wasn't around yet. It wasn't an option.
No.
In this day and age, with the competition on the rise and the focus on training and health and wellness and mental preparation and what it takes to be, like you said, an elite athlete. I want to talk a little about your perspective on the academic side and, your thoughts in general on, that opportunity to be able to leverage online academics such as ICL Academy. Share more about academics and why that's such a crucial path, Charlie.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I would have been a good online student just because I was always all over the place. I was a daydreamer. I think that's good, but probably not during class. But I think it gives you an opportunity for, if you're online, it gives you an opportunity to get your academics in order and then give you ample enough time to be able to do the things that you desire from a sports perspective, STEM, engineering, whatever it may be, perspective. And you're able to, have a balance if that's what you desire to be able to do. I've seen students do really, really well online, and then some may not be able to do well. They may need to be in a classroom. And I think being able to have both of those, but also in a small environment, definitely plays a big part in the success of a student, especially a student that's competing at the highest level. And one of the things that go hand in hand is there has to be what we consider discipline, work ethic. All those things go hand in hand, whether it's academics, whether it's sports, but you also have to have balance. Balance is something that will go with you for the rest of your life. If you're able to balance all those things and put them all in order and not lose, or as I call a mission drift, if you don't have a mission drift where you start putting more time into one or the other, but you find a healthy balance to be able to make those things work so that you can achieve whatever the goals that you desire, are always best. And so regardless of what academic setting you're in or sports you play, there has to be a healthy balance between academic, sports, and even your personal life. There has to be some time for your personal life, because if you're spending all your time in academics and all your time, a good portion of the time in sports, there may be some time for personal life, which I think is healthy. You just have to make sure that those roles don't get reversed, or the priorities, make sure they stay to where you're trying to meet whatever your goal is. If it's playing professionally, whether it's playing in college, you have to make sure that you prioritize what you're trying to do. But academics, if you're going to college and sports, academics and whatever sport it is has to take priority if you want to reach that goal, for sure.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, like you said, they go hand in hand, and you use the word balance multiple times there, and talk about how important that is. And we couldn't agree more. At the end of the day, it's wonderful to be able to go out and play and compete. And at the same time, in the classroom, it's wonderful to be able to focus on your studies, but you've got to have that balance, and it plays into everything else. And we'll get into, go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah. And Dayton, one of the things I challenge our basketball players is, when you're talking about competing on the field or the court or whatever sport you may play, you also compete academically, because if you're looking outside and you're trying to get a scholarship, you have to understand and know that if someone has a better academic record,
yep,
than you, or you're equal, and as far as your talent is concerned on the court or your sport, they're going to look at that academic piece. And so I think it's important that you give your best effort and work to compete academically as well, and be the best, in whatever it is. Because, one of the things when people look at my resume and all the different things, it's all of it, not just, one thing. It's all of it that makes me who I am. And so I just think it's important that we all understand that, when you're talking about competing, compete in everything, so that you can be the best, best at it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, you're always putting your best foot forward, always giving your best, because again, at the end of the day too, Charlie, you never know who's watching. You never who's paying attention. And I've been to, when I was coaching baseball, I've been to events, and again, sometimes I would dress down purposely. I wouldn't wear the college that I was coaching for, or I didn't want people to identify me. And the reason being is I wanted to see how the athlete was going to show up if they just thought I was an innocent bystander. I didn't want them knowing that I was a coach or a recruiter or whatever it may be. I wanted to see the true them. And so again, you just never know. And so putting your best foot forward at all times, it really obviously goes a long way in your overall development and where you could end up in your journey. So I'm going to pivot for a moment. I'm going to ask you one of the questions that came in from one of our students, Charlie. And the question is this: how was it like playing at such a high level, and how did you deal with losses? This person goes on to say, I'm a tennis player and I sometimes feel too much pressure and it leads to a loss. So talk a little bit about that, Charlie. How was it playing at such a high level? How did you deal with losses?
Well, I mean, it was great to be able to play at a high level. I played high level in high school, even though I was in Thomasville. I was one of the top quarterbacks that came out my senior year. When I got to Florida State, I played on one of the top teams, and then I got drafted and played in the NBA. And one of the things that you learn is when you prepare properly, meaning you go through all the different things that you need to be successful for that match or for that game. You should feel bad when you lose, because you know how hard you work to get there.
Yeah.
But that should drive you even more to continue to prepare, continue to work. And so I use this analogy a lot when I'm talking to, regular students or people who may not be athletes. And I talk to them from an academic standpoint, like, when you prepare for a test, if you prepare a week or 2 weeks in advance for that test, then you should be confident going into that test, knowing that I've prepared for it, I've studied, I did all the necessary things needed to make sure. And if you don't do well on that test, even though you were prepared, that shouldn't deter you. It should help you to see how can I improve my studying habits. Am I studying the right things? Go and talk to my teacher. And I find what the things that I need to be better on the next test. And so a lot of times when you lose, I always say it's a learning opportunity. Always, also, when you win, it is a learning opportunity. So a lot of times I talk about, I have a slogan for our basketball team this year. It's called PCEFL, and it stands for prepare, compete, execute, finish, and then the last two is L squared, which is learn from and live with the results. And so I just think it's important that regardless of what the results are, we have to learn from them and also be willing to live with them so that we don't repeat whatever it is. And those that win all the time, it's because they have a desire, they have a will to continue to work towards that goal. People who lose all the time, they work to try to find, sometimes they don't work to try to find why they're losing. They get so down on themselves that they lose their focus on how they can continue to get better. And so it's more of a mental grind than anything else, especially if you're losing time and time and time again. I've unfortunately been in that situation before where I've won time and time again, but I've also lost time and time again. And when it's all said and done, you have to learn from all those experiences. And those experiences are the ones that will help push you forward, drive you to want to have that feeling if you won, and not want to have that feeling if you lost.
Absolutely. I have a deep appreciation for what you said about learn from and live with it. And the reason I say that is I used to challenge myself, and I still do to this day. In fact, I was just talking to one of my staff the other day, and I talked about having 2 no days in a row. And they kind of looked at me and said, what do you mean, Dayton? And I said, I used to challenge myself to not have 2 no days in a row, meaning whether it was a loss, whether it was a mistake I made, whether something happened, on the field or at work or in school, I would go home each night and I would kind of journal down how was the day, what went well, and what was an opportunity. And those opportunities I kind of referred to as my no's. And so what I challenged myself was to not run into the same exact challenge the next day and react or respond the exact same way. I challenged myself to go down a new path. Hence, to your point, I was learning from what I was experiencing, choosing to live with it, and creating a better path for myself. So I really, again, appreciate what you said there. I want to talk a little bit about purpose, Coach, for a moment. At what point in your journey did you realize your deeper purpose beyond just winning games or, receiving a trophy? How did that purpose influence the choices you've made throughout your career?
Well, first, I'm a Christian. And, once I figured that part out, I know I had a bigger purpose for living. And, one of the things that I fought for a long time is being in the limelight. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to be a part of it. But unfortunately, God placed me in a position to where I had to be there. And, I had a knockdown, drag out talk with my mom because I didn't want to talk to the media. All I wanted to do was be the quarterback and, go out and do what I liked doing, which was compete. But one of the things that I found out and figured out later on when I started to understand the bigger purpose for God placing me in a position that he placed me in, it was not about me, it was about him, being able to glorify him through the talent and him getting the credit for doing the things that I was capable of doing, he was doing through me. And so once I started to understand that mission, my purpose, it became a lot easier to be able to move, shake, do the necessary things that I need to do to continue to build upon what he had blessed me with and those opportunities. And so, winning the Heisman, playing in the NBA, all those, being a head football and basketball coach, all those opportunities and my lifestyle, being able to share, like I'm sharing tonight, being able to share my experiences is all part of God's purpose for my life. And the trials and tribulations that I've had to go through. I didn't really talk about, we hear about the Heisman, but what we don't hear about is the 17 interceptions I had the year before. And the time where I had 8 interceptions in 2 games, like 14 interceptions in like 4 or 5 games. And so, but we were winning all those games because I had about 17 touchdowns. So I was a mixed bag. I was a mixed bag when it came down to positive and negative. And there's a lot of mental things, hurdles I had to get over. I had teammates there, people to help me. Coaches sat me down so that I can think through some of the things that I was going through. But it wasn't until I made up my mind that if I stopped throwing the football to the other team, we could really be successful. And so once I started doing that, we took off. We started winning more games at a bigger margin because our defense was really, really good. They kept us in a lot of those games and gave us opportunities at the end to win those games. And so I just think once we understand our purpose in life, it drives our mission and our vision in our life to be able to do what God has called us to do.
That's amazing. I appreciate the eloquence in talking about the interceptions versus the touchdowns, Charlie. You hit on a couple of our other P's that we talked about, which is perspective and perseverance. You gave perspective of one of the questions we typically ask, and we always like to hear in our students, this is one of the questions they ask most commonly is, can you share a time where you faced a significant challenge or setback? How did perspective help you? And you just gave some of that perspective, and then you tied it into, kind of your journey as far as the perseverance piece. You talked about, the highest of highs, winning the Heisman. I won't say lowest of lows because an interception is an interception. It shouldn't be, life or death. But at the same time, when you're competing, as out on the field as a elite quarterback, an interception that could cost your team in that moment is a very challenging situation. So any other perspective you would want to add, Charlie, on those significant challenges or setbacks? Anything else that helped you really move forward from a perspective standpoint?
Yeah, I my second year in the NBA, my rookie year, I didn't get a chance to play. I played like 44 minutes. Of course, in the NBA game, there's 48 minutes in one game. I only played 44 minutes my rookie year. But I continued to work throughout that year. We had a coaching change. A new coach comes in. I was due to be able to compete for the backup job that year. Unfortunately, with the new coach, he decided that he wanted to bring in one of his guys that he felt may be better suited for his system. And that meant that I was the odd man out. And there was nothing that I could do about it. I was frustrated, just like most people would. And I was doing everything that I was supposed to do to prepare myself, get ready for that spot. And then he came in and said, you're not ready. And so I had to go back to the drawing board. I had to go and continue to work with my skills development coach, which was Coach Jeff Van Gundy. And I had to understand that I was the odd man out. I was the third guy on the bench, third point guard. And I wasn't going to get a chance to play unless somebody got hurt or there was a new coach. And so I had to make sure that my attitude was right. It was frustrating, as I mentioned, going through that whole process. And I felt like it wasn't right because I didn't get a chance to compete for the job. And those things do happen. And sometimes it happens, to to you multiple times. What do you do? What do you do? How do you handle those situations? When I was going through the media, I learned that you have to make sure you prepare your answers beforehand, so that once you get up to the mic to answer questions, whatever questions asked, you have a game plan. And so I just think when you go through those challenging times, your perspective is, what am I going to do? How am I going to handle this? Because somebody's always watching. So as Dayton mentioned, so I think for me, during that time, I continued to work. I can continue to go in each and every day to get extra shots up, do extra conditioning, because I didn't know when my time was coming. And lo and behold, mid-year, we weren't playing well, and they made a coaching change. And when they made the coaching change after the All-Star break, the guy, my skill development coach, was the coach that they gave the opportunity to be the interim head coach. So who do you think he gave an opportunity to first? Yes, me. I got an opportunity to be in the rotation because I showed up to work each and every day, even when I wasn't getting the things that I desired. And he remembered that. He saw my work ethic, and the rest is history when it comes to my career. And then at the end of my career, when it was time for me to move on, he was the one that gave an opportunity to be a coach in the NBA. And so I just shared that because when we talk about perspective, sometimes things don't go our way, and we're not getting what we want at the moment. But we have to continue to work and put the time in, because you never know, when your opportunity is going to come, and who's going to be able to help you get to that next level or achieve your goals.
Yeah, that's key, Charlie. I mean, you touched on, multiple people so far, and obviously Coach Van Gundy, a legend, obviously in the New York space, and just the coaching rings in general, clearly had a profound impact on you, on your career, on your life. And, it's those individuals, whether it's a teacher, a parent, guardian, family member, friend, whoever it might be. There's so many people out there that they're with us along the journey. And you touched on quite a few things related to the process, and you've hit on habits and what it took. And you talked about the daily routine. I want to talk to you a little bit about that daily routine that you just spoke about, with Coach Van Gundy, where he at the time was kind of your skills coach. He was, I don't want to say behind the scenes, but at the same time, he wasn't at that time the head coach of the Knicks. And so he was a skills coach, and there's those key skills coaches like Coach Van Gundy that were helping you with your daily journey. Talk to the students for a moment, Charlie, about your daily journey. When you were at that elite performance level, what did that daily routine or process look like, and how did that evolve over time?
Well, as a rookie, as I mentioned, I came in like an hour before practice. And fortunate for us at the time, had Coach Pat Riley as a coach. And so we had like full practices, like practice 5-on-5, live. So it was a lot of live drills. So that helped us, those that weren't playing, because it kept us in game shape, game mode. But I came every day to compete. I had Derek Harper as a mentor, and every day we would go at it. Of course, as I mentioned, he's a mentor on the court and off. So once we were off the court, he was helping me understand what it was about to be a professional. But practice, making sure I was, taking care of my body. I was with the strength and conditioning coach. And, every day doing the necessary things to prepare myself for the game. Even though I wasn't getting an opportunity to play, I had to make sure that I was preparing myself to build good habits. Of course, just like anyone else, you have your moments, your times where you don't prepare properly, because from a mental standpoint, you're like, I'm not going to get an opportunity to play. But I also had someone there to be able to help me. A friend, co-worker, player, to be able to help me through those times as well. But also being able to go out in the community to serve the community, doing basketball camps. I did a lot of Habitat for Humanity work as well. All those things go hand in hand in building your brand. Whenever they asked me to go into the community, a lot of guys didn't like to do it, but they always came and asked me because they knew I would do it. And so that is something, you know, I enjoy doing, being able to reach out, and I call that being a servant leader. If you want to have or build a brand that carries on long term, I have these 5 characteristics that I talk about. One is you got to make sure you have a great collaboration. Like, who's on your team? You got to have a great team. Have a great team around you to be able to make sure they push you forward, push you to be the best that you can be at any time. The second one, you have to be accountable. First, you have to be accountable to yourself in order to be able to hold someone else accountable. And I always talk about speaking what you want, what you desire, even if you're not living that, because a lot of times we don't want to be noticed or known as a hypocrite. I guarantee if I ask anybody on this call, if you want to be known as a hypocrite, you wouldn't raise your hand. And so when we start talking about accountability, if you start speaking life into other people, even if you're not living it, you're going to feel a conviction because you're going to say, hey, I'm not living like that. And so I always encourage people, speak it. It's going to hold yourself accountable. The third characteristic is being a servant leader. You know, are you willing to serve someone else? My dad was a great servant leader. Every day before practice, he mopped the floor. For basketball, he was a basketball coach. He mopped the floor. After practicing games, he washed the uniforms. And so I saw that all the time. And so one of the things that I ended up doing as a coach, I'm out there mowing the grass, I'm mopping the floor, washing uniforms, putting up chairs after games. And people are like, well, you want a Heisman? You're a professional. Why are you doing this? Somebody else can do that. Well, if you see something that needs to be done, then you get it done. So being a servant leader is a characteristic that all champions have. The fourth one is work ethic. You got to have a great work ethic, as I've talked about. If you have a great work ethic, it gives you a chance to be successful. And then the fifth characteristic of a champion is you have to be grateful. You got to have gratitude. Regardless of what the situation is like, be grateful for that opportunity because it gives you an opportunity to learn and grow from it, whether it's positive or negative. A lot of people don't like the negative, but that can help you develop and grow. Because if you know you go somewhere and you know it's not a good environment or you've had a bad experience, most times you're not going back to that place. So let's be grateful for, you know, all situations because they help us grow into be that champion that God has called us to be.
Wow, that was amazing, Charlie. Those 5 elements, characteristics, as you just touched on, each of those tie directly into, in essence, how ICL was formed. You know, ICL, the Academy, didn't come around until the past 5 to 10 years. ICL initially started as the foundation, which is our nonprofit, and the nonprofit has existed now for nearly 25 years, and it's the Institute for Civic Leadership. And what we instill within our students, and we still focus on to this day, is character and leadership, because those are some of those qualities, like you talked about, that help make a champion. And when you talk about servant leadership, you know, we allow our students the opportunity to be able to participate in different community events, you know, acing autism, or like you talked about, Habitat for Humanity. I remember growing up myself playing multiple sports. I was a quarterback in junior high and high school. I was a baseball player, I was a basketball player. Ultimately, I had to choose, what sport I was going to go with. I chose baseball, but I had opportunities to participate in community engagement type events. And I remember justifying at the time, oh, I'm too busy. I don't have the time. I've got to practice. I'm not getting home until 8 o'clock at night. And then I remember one time I finally, as I said at that time, got roped into doing it. And it was transformational because what I was doing with my healthy body was going and giving back to somebody else that maybe was not as fortunate. And you talked about the word gratitude. That in that moment allowed me to feel that level of gratitude, which I realized I had so much to be grateful for. And me giving back was allowing someone else to maybe pick themselves up from a challenging situation and be able to express that same level of gratitude and just simply being able to just say thank you for an opportunity that we're giving back to them. So I really appreciate the fact that you went into that servant leadership. That goes right hand in hand with what we talk about at ICL.
That's good.
Couple more questions, Coach. We actually just had one come in from one of our students, and so I'll ask you that, and then I'm going to give you a few minutes as well, just to kind of share any additional thoughts. But one of the questions that just came in from our students was, how did you feel when you have a busy schedule every single day? Basically, what the student's getting at is, this day and age, I think more probably, Charlie, now than even when we were playing, things are busier, crazier than they've probably ever been. The expectations are higher than they've ever been. So talking
Right.
back to the student, how would you answer that? When you had that busy kind of schedule every day, how did you feel? What did you do?
Well, really, what it does is it gives you order. Um, because I know as an athlete, if you have your academic time, you have your workout time, and it shortens your day. And so whatever other time you have, you can fill that with whatever, and that's your choice. And so it goes back to balance as well. And one of the things that I have to make sure is, me having a family, making sure that I balance that time. It may not be quantity, it has to be quality time, because you have to go out, you have to work, you have to spend time with your wife. You have to make sure that whatever your kids are involved in, you are a part of that. And so I think you have to make sure that you prioritize your time. Busy is good, but if it's just doing, things that may not be leading you to your goals, whatever your goals are, then that's busy work. That's some stuff that you may be able to cut out of it. So I'm not sure what the student is going through as far as when she said, I think it's a she, when she says that her schedule is busy. I always say busy is good, because that means that you are prioritizing something, or you're moving and shaking, as I call it. And that's a good thing, to be moving and shaking. But you also have to prioritize rest in that mix as well, and some things that you do for pleasure, whether that's going bowling, whether that's doing, going to the movies, whatever it may be. You have to prioritize some downtime as well. So it just comes down to having a healthy balance, I do believe.
Well, and those last couple of things you just hit on, Coach, are, that balance. And that is really tied into something that probably didn't come up as much when you and I were playing back in the day. And that's around the mental well-being. You talk about the balance. I was, when I was growing up, I was always on the field. I was always on the court, you just
Right.
practicing playing, and you didn't really think about the mental aspect because it wasn't talked about or spoken about then. But what you just touched on, getting sleep, eating healthy, taking some time to do something personal with your friends, whatever it may be, those are crucial aspects to that healthy mental balance as well. And it really ties in to something you said earlier, and I want to hone in on this before asking you one or two final questions, and that's around your brand. You spoke earlier about you didn't really love being on camera or talking to reporters at first. That wasn't your thing. And you ultimately said that what you learned was when you were interviewed before, you know, whether it was before a game, after game, you had answers kind of prepared. You knew what you kind of wanted to say. And I think that's so important, especially for athletes today. Now more than ever, the exposure to the media or to outside sources is higher than it's ever been. And so having kind of that foundation is so crucial. And I guess I want to hit on that with you. And that comes back to the character piece, the communication piece, and the brand itself. Why is having a brand, you know, so important? Why do athletes need to focus on that?
But the brand is kind of, you know, who you are and yeah, basically who you are. And I think a healthy brand is for people to see that I'm not perfect, that we have struggles, because a lot of times on social media, we always put things out that are positive about us. But we also have to understand that we're not perfect. And so that's one of the reasons why I talk about my struggles, and the things that I had to navigate through, because all of us have to navigate through adversity. And adversity reveals our character for sure, and how we respond to positive and negative, you know. And so the mental part, and I'm so grateful that I didn't have to navigate through this mental Olympics, or all these different hurdles that today's athletes have to go through, or people in general have to go through, that's in the public figure, that's a public figure, because there's so many outside opinions and thoughts, and we're all human, because when we hear certain things, we always internalize it. And so one of the things that I did, even when I was playing, and I was struggling, and as I mentioned, I got booed at home, actually, during a football game, because I was, you know, throwing interceptions. But I had to internalize that, like, why are they booing? They were booing because I wasn't playing well. And so what do I need to do so they won't boo and they can love me or play better? And so I had to internalize that and be honest with myself. Yes, I wouldn't do that to someone else, but are they doing it because I'm throwing 5 touchdowns and no interceptions? If I'm doing that, then I'm getting cheered. You know, I'm getting claps, and I'm getting good job. And that's what eventually happened over the course of time. And that's what people remember now. But some people remember, you know, when I was struggling at that time. And so I just think we have to, if we're going to listen to the noise, we have to understand that that's people's opinion. Mm-hmm. That doesn't have to be our thought process of who we are, who God sees us as. Well, first, that's who we should be trying to please in the first place, our Heavenly Father, and hear what He has to say about us. But we also have to know that what other people are saying, there may be some truth to that, and you have to find out what's true and what's not, and then continue to move forward. And so I just think you have to be in a healthy place, along with not just internalizing it, but also speaking it to people that you can trust, like a therapist, sports psych, coach, someone that's willing to listen and also give you some wisdom on, you know, how to handle certain situations, because it can become overwhelming if you keep hearing boos, you keep hearing you're not good, you keep hearing all these negative things that come in. Then yes, you need to share that with someone so that you can get into a space where it is healthy. You can hear positives. You can hear how you're doing. You can continue to put in the work to make sure that you're doing the things that because you want to receive. I haven't seen very many people that prepare to lose.
Yep.
That's highly competitive, I should say. There are people who prepare to lose because they don't do anything in the preparation standpoint uh, to be able to sustain what they desire. You're not going to get an A by cramming. You're not going to get an A on the test by cramming the night before. I mean, that's just poor preparation. Um, and if you do get an A on the test, that is what I consider fool's gold, because you're not going to be able to sustain that long term. And so I just think it's important that you understand that when we talk about these mental hurdles that we have to continue to jump over, we have a choice. It's our choice on how we handle those situations. And there are outlets, there are a lot of outlets this day and age to be able to help you navigate through that maze.
Charlie, thanks for that wisdom, and thanks for talking about the fact that there are outlets these days. There are people to talk to. Like you said, there are, sports psychologists, there's therapists, there's your family, there's coaches, there's friends, and those outlets become important. It's good to not keep it bottled up. It's good to be able to talk about it and figure out what the best path forward is. So thank you for touching on that. Charlie, you've hit on almost everything that we normally talk about. One of the questions that I always ask as we kind of wrap up before I turn it over to you to share any other additional thoughts is, at ICL, we currently have over 30 passions that we represent, from basketball to football to equestrian to tennis to volleyball to golf, figure skating, you name it, we pretty much have it as far as our students. We're spread across 30 countries, not just the United States, but 30 countries worldwide, which is amazing. We're seeing kids flourish in so many different ways. And what I want to go back to is what you said earlier. You talked about being in first grade and wanting to become a pro. Imagine every kid that's with us. I wanted to become a pro too. And it didn't end up happening for me, and that's okay. I ended up, achieving some great things collegiately and found myself on a different pathway, and that was wonderful. But the question I'll ask you is this, Charlie: what advice would you give to those young athletes, whether they're on the call tonight, whether they're a student of ICL, or just in general, they're aspiring to reach that professional level? What would you that last piece of advice, or most important piece of advice that you would give them as they're aspiring to reach that professional level?
Well, I talked about the championship, the characteristics of a champion. And you hit on something about the process. I don't know how many of y'all bake cakes, or have you ever seen a cake being baked? Maybe you haven't, or you have. But if you haven't, or if you have, you understand that the cake has to go through a process. Now, we know the goal is to have the cake, baked, and it looks like with the icing and all the different things. But there are ingredients that go into that cake. There are ingredients that go into the icing. And so when we talk about our lives, that is what we have to do. Each and every day is part of the ingredients to us being able to see that cake baked or our dreams realized. And sometimes I know for myself, I aspire to have a cake built and it comes out looking like a cake, but it doesn't taste like I want.
Yeah.
And so I sometimes have to chalk it up that I did something wrong through that process, but I can have a redo. I can try it again. And so for us, we may not always achieve our goals, but we have to continue to work towards achieving that goal. And it may take us, 1 month. It may take us 2 years. It may take us 5 years. It may take us 10 years before we can achieve whatever that dream or goal is that we desire. And so we have to continue that process of, how can I continue to get better? How can I put one step in front of the other? We call it stacking days. How can I stack days, whether it's positive, negative, to get me to my goal? And so when I talk about making it in the NBA, there's no cookie cutter formula to make that happen. But what I do know is you have to be your best not all the time, but a good portion of the time. You also have to have people that believe in you on your team to be able to push you to that next level each and every day. It's not going to be easy. I had coaches that pushed me past comfortable. I had players challenge me to be the best that I can be, to make sure I held up my end of the bargain so I can be the best player. And when it was all said and done, I had put myself in a position to be drafted in multiple sports because I played baseball in high school and Pee Wee Little League. I got drafted in the MLB. And I even played baseball in college. They just saw me as an athlete and they were like, hey, I drafted him. He may come and play baseball. Of course, I didn't get drafted in NFL, but I gave myself an opportunity to get drafted in NFL by being the best that I could be in college. I got drafted in the NBA. My story is my story. However, we all have our own story that we have to live up to. And some of y'all will play professionally, some won't. But that's not the issue. The issue is, how can I be the best that I can be to give myself an opportunity to achieve that goal? And if I don't make it professionally, then I'm going to be professional in something because I need a job. I have a family. I got to eat. I got to live. So those habits that you develop throughout, baking that cake, getting to the end professionally, if that's your desire, you may not get there, but you can start over in another profession because sports teaches us a lot. Teaches us how to be a great teammate, teaches us how to be disciplined, teaches us work ethic, teaches us how to compete, how to build great relationships, teaches us a lot of different things, how to be tough-minded. And so all those things go into what I say is, if you don't reach your goal of being professional, you're going to be professional in something.
That statement stuck with me when you said it a moment ago, and then you just finished up again with it, Charlie. And you said, again, you may not make it professionally, but you're going to be professional in something, and that couldn't be more true. Everything we learn on the field, when we're training, when we're competing, whatever it may be, and even in the classroom, it's building us toward something, and that is to be a professional in something. And you talked about the cake and using the ingredients. So we couldn't be more appreciative, Charlie. Before we wrap up, I'm going to give you one more chance. If there's anything, doesn't have to be related to questions, but anything that you want to share, whether it's related to the nonprofit work you do, what you're doing with Champions Ranch, anything that you and your wife are doing, or just in general, Charlie, would love to give you that opportunity before we wrap up.
Well, we all have, when we talk about serving the community, the reason my wife and I do what we do from a nonprofit standpoint is because someone did it for us. Our parents were educators, and so we saw them help students develop and grow. And some of those students, of course, are grown just like us, and they come back and they know our parents. My father-in-law's passed away, but he helped quite a few students achieve their goals. And so we want to be able to do that with the platform that God has blessed us with, to be able to have relationships, not just here where we are locally, but in all the places that we've been. And ICL is, a relationship that's been built as well. And so I just think it's important that we all understand, making sure that you're holding your end of the bargain. I talk about this a lot, being one of. And for us in the Champions Ranch is as I talked about earlier, being a youth and family sports education and wellness campus, we're just one of. God gave us that vision, but it's a partnership model, and we're just trying to collaborate with nonprofits and for-profits all to be on one campus to serve the youth and families to build stronger champions, and also build a champion within. So I just think being able to give back, and it makes, as you talked about earlier, being able to see others excited about someone helping them achieve their goals is the ultimate goal, an ultimate dream for any person, or should be. And so for my wife and I, and also our family, it's a family foundation, and then the community, those that are helping us through this journey, we're grateful for. That believed in the vision, is believing in the vision. We still need more to believe in the vision, but when it's all said and done, God's going to be glorified through it all, because I am a big believer that whatever our heart, whatever our heart's desire is, God is going to honor that. And so what I mean by that is, if your heart is in the right position or spot when you make a decision, God's going to honor that in some form or fashion. It may not be right then. It may be a year later, maybe 2 years later, or maybe 5 years later. I don't know. But our hearts are in the right place, and I know He's going to honor that by bringing the right partnerships and people on board to be able to help support what we're trying to do. That's not the only thing that we do. We just got finished doing a shoe drive for local Pop Warner here, giving out cleats and cheer shoes. We do a Father's Day and a holiday clinic to help support fathers and mentors and mentees and families that way as well. And we do disaster relief efforts as well. So I believe our heart's in the right place, and He's going to honor that in some form or fashion. So I just encourage you all to make sure that, whatever you do it for the right reasons. And when you do it for the right reasons, there's one thing can happen. You can sleep at night. And the second thing is, you at least give yourself a chance to reach your goal by doing things the right way.
I love that, Charlie. And I can attest to the fact that, it's more than just words for you. Tonight's a perfect representation of that. You're giving back. You're consistently giving back through all the work that you just talked about. But even being here with us tonight as a champion mentor, you're giving back to all of our students, all of our families. And we are immensely grateful for the fact that we got an hour with you. I don't know how it flies by. This happens every single time. It flew by. You gave us a ton of what we call kind of golden nuggets. And, I know that those that weren't able to join tonight, they'll be excited to be able to review the recording. And, I have no doubt that obviously we're going to be able to do this again in the future and be able to continue to impact each other's lives and the lives of others as well. So thank you again, Coach. Thanks for being with us. We have multiple thank yous that are coming through the chat, and really appreciate the time tonight.
I appreciate you guys for having me on, and may God continue to bless everyone in their journey.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Coach. Have a wonderful night.
All right, you too.